Okay, now let's take a look at the pretty much final weather app. If we click right here, you're going to see there is the icon that I'm going to use for the weather app. And if we select it, it's going to pull up all of our information. As you can see right there, a lot of information, a lot of useful information. And for now, whenever I click on our little magnifying glass up here, you're going to see that all the information updates, but it's pretty much updated right now, so it's looking pretty good. And there it is. This is everything. It's all dynamic. It's going to pull information from the National Weather Service and display it for you. And now I think what would be really great homework, if you're up for it, and you might not be, that's perfectly okay. I've taught you everything you need to know already to create this weather app, so you could shut the video off and go make it now. Otherwise, hang around and I'll show you exactly how to put all this together. Okay, so now you know what the final weather app is going to look like, and like I said, you could go ahead and create it yourself if you'd like. That would be a great learning experience because I've taught you everything you need to know to build everything here. Or you can just hang around here and I'm going to show you exactly how I made everything. Now the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to the icon section. I already uploaded it, but just come in here and click on upload file, and the icon, if we just want to look at it, is right here. There's our final icon, and I showed you already how to use Inkscape, so I'm sure you'll be able to create this on your own. It's a 96 by 96 pixel icon. And now we have that out of the way, why don't we go in here and look at what else we're going to have to do. Well, one big problem here, not a big problem, just a problem, is that the text inside of here needs to be changed to the same color as this cloud here, as well as all the other icons. So let's look at exactly how we're going to do that. Okay, so here are the blocks, and I decided rather than making you watch me put all this together, I just went ahead and did some of it ahead of time. So of course we're going to be pulling information from the National Weather Center, and here is the URL for all of that, and I covered all of that in the past. All that information is going to be loaded into weather data, which is a list. And that brings us to the text color part here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to initialize or create a variable called text color, and I want to make a new color with it. And to do so, you just create a list, which is going to be your red, green, and blue colors, and that's going to create your text color. And if you want to know where you create customize colors, you just come over here, click on colors, right like this, and then down here you can make a customized color. And this is just red, green, and blue, which you can get from any type of editor. Inkscape, of course, will provide you with that. Alright, so then once I have that all set up, I wanted to also have a customized background color for my screen. So in the initialization part, I went and created that background, and it's just a light gray. And then I cycled through all of the different text areas, as you can see right here, and set their text color to my customized blue text color. I did all that in the initialization phase, and as you saw, there was no period whenever the app loaded up in which it was black. Now, whenever you're working with the regular old Connect AI Companion and all that, you might have that issue where it's black in the very beginning because it's a little bit slower. But once you go into build like this and then provide a code, which works sometimes, this is normally what I do. I just go and save the APK to my computer and then email it to myself. Once you do that, it's going to load instantly, nothing to worry about. Alright, so let's scroll down through here and cover all of the other different things. All these things we've done already. Remember, we want to set our location sensor to work so we can use GPS, and to guarantee that that works, we have to first shut it off and then turn it on. We then want to check our location sensor to make sure that one of the available providers for location data is the GPS. We then want to choose the GPS, and then we want to lock down that as an option by going provider lock true. We're then going to store inside of a variable the latitude and the longitude. We're going to use those later. And then we're going to check to make sure that the latitude value isn't 0. And if it isn't, we're going to go and get our weather data. Now, of course, if we can't get our weather data because the GPS is shut off, we're going to pop up a little dialog box and it's going to say, hey, please enable GPS settings. And if they click that they want to do so, if they choose not to, well, nothing's going to work, so that's up to them if they want it to work or not. We are then, after they make a choice with the dialog box, going to make sure that the choice was okay, and if it was, we're going to call a procedure called open location settings. Here we're going to define that we want the location source settings, which is the location inside your Android device that allows you to turn on GPS. We want to set that the action or what we want to open is that part of the settings, and then call for that part of the settings to start. Then we're going to prepare to go and get the information off of an outside website or a web service by defining the URL we want, and we're just going to put in our latitude and our longitude values and all the other information that you saw up above. And then we're going to call for that information to be pulled in with WebGet. And then we get into actually getting that information and using JSON text decode to pull all that information in and create great big giant lists of lists. So let's go back and let's review for a second exactly what information we're pulling in. Okay, so this is the information we're going to be pulling inside of here and then storing inside of our lists. And basically this is JSON data, which is just key valued pairs, and we're going to cycle through all these key valued pairs to get the information that we want. Now, as you previously saw, we created an Android application that was going to show us exactly how all of this information was going to be sorted once it was pulled into our Android device. Then basically what we're going to do is cycle through and figure out the codes needed to grab said data. Now, of course, like we saw before, the information is backwards, but it's, pretty easy to figure out. Basically, everything is inside of a list, and there are 11 list items as we cycle through here. And you can see there's all 11 list items and all the data that we have available to pull in. Then inside of there are lists of lists. So in list item 4, we're going to have another list that's going to be called current observation. And let's say that we want to get the current temperature, which is right here, 46 in this situation. So how are we going to get that? Well, first off, we're going to write down 4 because that's what we're trying to get at, the list item 4. And then we don't want current observation right here. We want this list called current observation. So that's going to be the second option that's available to us. Then which item inside of here do we want? We want the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. That's where temperature resides, so let's write down 7. And then do we either want the word temp or the actual temperature, which is 46? We want the actual temperature, so that's the second item that's available to us. And then, of course, whenever we are creating this inside of our code, we're going to basically just reverse it. So we're going to type in 2 and 7 and 2 and 4. And that's how we're going to get our current temperature. And like I said, this is a screen print of the Android app right here. So let's go and see how we're going to use 2724. Here we are back inside of App Inventor. And if we look here for where our current temperature is, current temp label, which is, jump over here, this guy right here. So if we click on that and come over here to see what's highlighted, you're going to see current temp label is highlighted. So let's jump back over into blocks. And here we are in blocks, and here is current temp label. And to create it, I first off created a join because I wanted to put degrees at the end because that isn't in the data. And then you can see right here how I'm selecting the different list items. 2, 7, 2, 4. And now you know exactly how I get all of them. Then it's basically just a matter of going through all of those different items, figuring out what you want, deciding where exactly they live inside of our list, and figuring out those numbers. And that is how you pull data from any web service. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It's a little bit of work, but I don't know, I kind of find it to be fun. And that brings us to the point where we are going to pick our weather icons. And we have to just use a little bit of logic to figure out how we're going to decide which icon shows up here. And later on, we're going to also put a icon right here. And don't worry, I'm going to show you exactly how I created the tonight and all this stuff here. So we basically just have to think about what type of information are we going to need. Or we're going to need a way to, let's jump back over into Designer again. We're going to need a way to decide based off of this guy right here. So this icon, whatever is being used here, is going to be determined based off of the words that are contained in this text right here. Then we have to think of, well, what is the most severe type of weather that we could have? Well, I went and got myself a text editor. Here it is. And I basically went through here, and as I was deciphering city name and where it was located in the JSON data and the current temperature, I wrote all those out on paper. And then I got to the point where I had to figure out what icon. So I'm just writing out, if the start period name 11 is tonight, use moon, because remember I have one cloud that has a sun and another cloud that has a moon. So that's going to determine if I use either suns or moons. And this is going to be the information I'm going to pull that from. And my basic reasoning here is, if the second item, let's jump out of this, jump back into the App Inventor. If the second item, this is the guy I'm looking at. So I want to get this, and by finding out what the second time period is, I can decide both what this time period is and also what the time period after it is. So if this is tonight, well, that means that my current time period is during the day, which means I would use a sun. If, however, this was anything but tonight, I would use a moon up here. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Alright, so after I figure out what my current time period is, basically I have to decide on what icon I'm going to use. So, what I'm going to use here, I'm basically going to display the most severe icon possible. So I'm going to search through, let's look at the App Inventor again. I'm going to search through chance of rain, snow, this guy right here, for the word that is the most severe. In this situation, snow is normally more severe than rain, so I'm going to search for snow. If I find the word snow in that description, well, that means I'm going to use the snow icon. If I then I don't find snow, but I find rain, then I'm going to use the rain icon. And then I'm going to use fog. If that shows up, if sunny shows up, I'm going to show the sun. Otherwise, I'm going to use the most common weather that you could possibly get. If it's nighttime, I'm going to use the cloud with the moon. And otherwise, else, to make sure that I always have an icon available, I'm just going to use partly cloudy, which is the most common weather that you're going to see. Alright, so that's the basic logic behind how I picked all of our icons. So let's jump over into blocks again, and let's look at this. Now what I'm doing by default is setting cloudy, which is the most common weather pattern, as my default weather icon that I'm going to use. And I'm going to use the current weather report, which is just a variable that's going to hold the word cloudy inside of it. Alright, so after I get that, then I am going to store that information, which is that little brief description that shows up under the current temperature in the designer view, which I showed you a couple times in the past. I'm going to get that, I'm going to store it inside of this little guy right here. And then, as we cycle down through here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm also going to find out, is it nighttime or not? And I told you, I'm going to check if tonight shows up in that box that I showed you previously. And if tonight does show up, I'm going to say that my current time is not going to be night. So I'm going to mark that as false. Else, if tonight doesn't show up inside of it, I'm going to mark the current time as true. And then I'm going to store that inside of here. Alright, so that's just going to determine if I show a sun or a moon behind clouds, or I just show a sunny sign, or a regular moon shape. Then, let's jump back over to Designer again. I'm going to also have to check for what it says weather-wise down inside of here. Now, most of the time, this information is going to be in lowercase. So you see snow is lowercase right there. Now, I could convert everything into uppercase and then search for individual words. If that doesn't make sense, don't worry about it. That would just give me a more exact sort of weather pattern. But for this app, I'm not going to worry about being 100% accurate every single time. So that is why I chose cloudy with a lowercase c there, because most of the time the description I'm going to be searching through is going to have lowercase letters. And then I'm doing exactly the same thing, pulling in all that weather information. And then I'm also going to have another weather pattern, which is going to be after tonight, which is going to be whatever the next day's weather is. And otherwise I'm going to say, sorry, the weather service may be down, or blah, blah, blah. Just pop up a little dialog box. Okay, so that brings us into exactly how am I going to list tonight with the weather pattern, the little low symbol, the high symbol, pull this information in, and also provide a description later on. Well, just like I did before, I actually pulled this out of here because there was just too many lines. I pulled all that information out, and what I'm going to do is measure everything. So I know this is going to be 15 pixels because I did that before. This is going to be 114 pixels long, 30 pixels, 24. There's going to be a space right here. Then I'm going to have the symbol, then another space, then the temperature, then another symbol, then another space, and then the temperature. So that means I'm going to have to create myself a table row inside of my app, and it's going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 boxes inside of it, and then I'm going to have another description underneath here that's going to be 281 pixels. So now that I know all of that, I can go inside of App Inventor and go over into the designer view just like I did before. And let's do a little bit of designing here. Okay, so I have a little divider right here, which is just a horizontal layout. Well, now I want to get myself a table arrangement. So I'm just going to grab over here, get a table arrangement, come over here, and drop it down inside of there. And let's go and double check that it went underneath. Yes, it did, horizontal arrangement. Otherwise, this would be indented if it went in the horizontal arrangement. And now that I have that set, well, I said I was going to have 10 columns. And of course, I'm going to have one row. And I want my width to be fill parent because that's what it was. And there we go. Now I got that all set up. Now the very first thing we're going to have to do here is we're going to have to put a margin inside of here. and I'm just going to use a basic label. There it is. Grab that, and you can see how the little different boxes in the table layout's going to line up here. I'm going to drop that inside of there. Remember, it's just a margin, so it's not going to have any text inside of it. It's going to be 15 pixels wide. So click inside of here, put 15, and that's it. Okay, so now I got my margin. Now, the next thing I'm going to need, you could look at this as an example. I'm going to have to put in, this is going to be tonight, and this is going to be the next day. So just as a placeholder, I'm going to put tomorrow inside of that, because that makes sense. I'm up inside of here, grab a label, come on down inside of here, drop it in my little table, and there it is. Oh, did I get it? Let's go. Now I got it. All right, and then come over here. The text for that is going to be tomorrow. And there it is. And I'm going to make the font bold because it was bold above. Going to increase my font size to 16 because that's what it was above. And I'm going to make my text width 114 pixels because that's what Illustrator told me to do. And like I said, I'm just using Illustrator because I can use the little ruler and it works a little bit better in a presentation. You can do every single thing I'm doing here inside of Inkscape. Okay, so 114 pixels, that's where that came from. So now I have that set up. Well, what's the next thing? Well, I need to put this icon inside of here. So let's go over here and grab myself an image, drag it over here, drop it right there. There's my image. I'm going to come in and, well, first off, I'm going to click on this label right here and I'm going to rename it. And I'm going to call this last weather period label. Now I don't need type label, there's label, okay. And that's going to be the tomorrow part. And then click on the picture. I'm also going to want to change that value, so I want to give it a name. And I'm going to call this last weather period image. Okay, so that works good. And now we need to define the image we want to use. I'm just going to use cloudy day and click on OK. That's the default. And I'm going to make the width 30 pixels because that's what my vector art tool told me it should be. And the height is going to be 26 pixels. And then click on OK. And there we go. Now I'm going to have my little cloud inside of here. See, there's the cloud. It perfectly lines up with this. Now I'm going to have to put another label in here to put a space inside of there. Grab label, drag it over here, drop it right there. Back over here, come up there and delete the text inside of it. And the width for this label is going to be 24 pixels. Click OK. That's all I need to do. Then I need to get the low image that's right there. So I'm going to get another image, drag it over here, drop it. And then I could give it a name if I'd like. Go rename. And I don't plan on changing this. I don't know. I sort of like willy-nilly decide on whether something should have a name or not, and understand that my naming is normally a little bit better whenever I'm not doing a tutorial. Okay, click OK. And then I got to go and get the actual picture that I'm going to use. So click on this, and low temp is the name of that icon. And the width of that is going to be 12 pixels. Click OK. All right, and there it is. Perfect. Give myself another label to use as a margin or padding, and delete this and change this to 5 pixels of width. And now I got more padding. There it is. Now I have to put in my temperature, and then it's going to stretch the whole way across until it gets this icon. So I got to get another label, drag it over here, drop it right there, come over here, and I'm going to make this 19 degrees, and the width for this is going to be 36. And there we go. And you can see it stretches the whole way over perfectly. Then I'm going to get the high icon, grab that image, drop it right there. I should change this also. Let's go rename. Call this last weather period low label. Okay, and that's that guy right there. Get this guy again. Get my picture, and it is going to be high temperature. Click OK. Click on the width, make this 12 pixels. Okay, got that in there. Then I'm going to have to get the last little margin, which is going to be a label again. Drop it right there. Come over here, get rid of this, make this 5 pixels again. You can see how everything's coming together. And then I just have to put in my last high temperature, which is going to be a label as well. Drag it, drop it right there. Come over here, change the name. I'm going to change this to 38 degrees as a default. And I'm also going to rename it. There that is. Make sure you can see it. Last weather period high label. And there we are. We're done with that. Now let's make sure that I have everything all set the way that I want it to be set. And of course I have all the blocks and all the descriptions of what every component in the designer view looks like in a link underneath the video, but so everything looks good. Alright, so I have a name for this, last weather period, because that's going to be changing. Click on this. I have another one for that icon, which is going to be changing. I have the low also there, and I have the high. Perfect. Alright, so now what I want to do is put another dividing line here, or just a margin, and then put in a description. So I'm going to go over into layout, get myself a horizontal arrangement and drop it inside of there. You can see this went way up, and I'm just going to make the width be fill parent and the height be 9 pixels. Again, because the vector art told me to do that. And then the last thing is going to be a horizontal arrangement that's going to have a margin, of course, inside of it, and then the description itself. So I'm going to get a horizontal arrangement and hopefully drop it underneath that. Don't put it inside. Perfect. There it is. I'm going to change its width over here to fill parent. Then I'm going to go get myself a label, which is going to act as a margin. So there's label. Drag it over here. Drop it right there. It's going to be 15 pixels because every other one. Let's go and fill parent. Well, no, I don't want to do that. What am I doing? 15 pixels for our width. And also I'm going to get rid of the text for that. And then I just have to put in the description itself, which is going to be another label. So just grab the label. You can do multi-line labels. Make sure it goes in the right place. There it is. And for this guy, I'm just going to, whoops, don't do that. I'm going to select it, come over here, highlight all this text. I'm just going to put some dummy text inside of this. Select this and delete that and paste that long list of information in there. And I'm going to define the width for this to be 284 pixels. And the height's going to be automatic based off of the amount of data that comes in. So it's going to scale dynamically based off of the information. And then I want to give it a name. So rename, because I'm going to be changing the information inside of this. And the name for it's going to be last weather period description label. And there we go. So that's how we designed that. Okay, so I want this eventually to allow the user to enter their city and then hit this little magnifying glass and pull up all this information dynamically, but that's going to be covered in the last part of the tutorial, next one that's coming up. But for now, what I want to do is I just want to have the search button when it's clicked on to update all the information that's here. So let's go in and look at exactly the blocks that we're going to have to create for that. So first, let's find search button. And let's say that when the search button is clicked, let's just drag it over here, zoom out a little bit. When the search button is clicked, how are we going to auto update everything? Well, basically, we're just going to copy some code from over here. And in fact, why don't I just drag this way up here so it'll be easier to copy the code over. And here we are. This is the information I want to call whenever the search button is clicked on. So there's no point in me recreating it. Why don't I just duplicate it? So I'm just going to duplicate it, drag it over here. I'm going to get the current latitude value just to show you what that is. I'm going to get the current longitude value as well. Duplicate, drag it right there, and then get this guy right here and duplicate it as well. And the get weather data procedure is going to update everything for me. There we go. That's how hard it was to update all the information when the search button's clicked on. And then the final, well, one of the final things is actually defining the icons based off of if it's day or night or whether the words snow, rain, fog, sunny, or whatever line up inside of the descriptions. All I did was create a procedure called change weather icon, and the weather icons I'm referring to here is this weather icon right here. This is going to be weather icon 1, and then there's 2 more weather icons. There's this weather icon right here, and there's this weather icon right there. So that's going to be the second weather icon. This is going to be the third. Jump back over into blocks, and I'll walk you through exactly how I got those to work. Okay, so basically what I'm doing is I'm just getting the description, which was stored from above, and I'm checking to make sure if the description has the word snow inside of it. Again, I'm using uppercase letters here. If it does have snow, well, then I no longer need to search for anything else because snow is the most severe type of weather, at least in this situation. So I'm going to change the actual picture to snow ping, and I get the name snow ping from my list of media over here. So let's zoom out of this and zoom over. You can say there's snow ping. So that's how easy it is. I don't have to go searching around in deep directories and so forth to find it. I can just type in snow ping and it works. Then if it's not snowing, then it's going to be raining, and if it's not raining, it's going to be foggy, and if it's not foggy, it's going to be sunny. Otherwise, I'm going to define is it day or night currently for that icon. If it's night, by default, I'm going to give it cloudy night, and otherwise, I'm going to, with the else statement here, going to make it a cloudy day. Then I did that also for the second item, except in this situation, the only thing that changed is this is lowercase, and this is lowercase, and this is lowercase, and so forth and so on. And that is how I dynamically changed the icons for all those different guys. And for the third one here, just to make this work. Click on this, which is going to be last weather period image, which is the very last one that I have there. I'm just going to go set picture 2, drag this down here, drop it right there, do a little bit of duplication with this guy, and I'm only doing this because I just defined this in the designer view, and so I have to go back into the blocks area. And I thought, what the heck, let's just do it. And there's another one. And another thing I want to point out while I'm sitting here looking at the errors and warnings and all that stuff, you can just ignore those. A lot of you guys are getting hung up on them. Don't worry about them. They are weird. They sometimes will just get locked into showing a warning that you actually corrected over and over again even after you've corrected it. So don't get hung up on those errors and warnings. First, check that everything works, and if you follow all the little diagrams I provide, you won't need to worry about that. And then, of course, I can just come in here and duplicate this as well. Duplicate, drag it down there for snow. Get the rain, duplicate it. Foggy. And then we have sunny, then we have cloudy night, and then finally we have cloudy day. D-A-Y. And there you go. Everything is all set up block-wise, and that brings us to the final thing to do here. And you guys ask for homework all the time, so I'm going to give you some. And basically what I want you to do is allow the person to come in here and enter in their location. And sorry about this, this is only working for the United States, just what I chose. But enter in a city and state and hit search and pull up information for that specific state. Now I'm going to give you a hint. You can get latitude and longitude based off of the city and the state by going to this location, which I'll provide in the description where this is. And basically what you're going to be able to do is come in here and type in the city name and state, and then it is going to pull up location data, which you can then parse through. And here it is, latitude and longitude based off of city and state. So I hope you enjoyed this. Like I said before, everything I do here is available in the description underneath the video. Please leave your questions and comments below. Otherwise, till next time.